It's gardening time on Mansfield today. I'm Melanie Walker, and yes, it's all about getting down and getting dirty. And I can think of some nice ways of getting dirty as well, but we're not going to get into those today. What we are going to get into is a bit of information and some really good advice from somebody who knows what it's like to talk about, which is what we gardeners usually talk about. We talk about our soil, and we talk about that we put into our soil. So to give us some really great information about it, we've got Gareth Passmore from Bark Unlimited, who go out and create all kinds of marvelous stuff for you to put into your garden. And frankly, having been out to their whole production facility, it is probably some of the best compost and stuff I have seen. Gareth, thank you for joining us.
Oh, Melanie, thanks for the intro. It was quite good.
Okay, so we always talk about this when we're talking about gardening, is that if you're going to create a garden, or even if you're just doing a pot garden, the most important thing to get right first is what you're going to be growing your plants in. If you don't have that right, then you are absolutely wasting your time and money by putting anything into that space. Would you agree that that is the most important thing?
Yes, definitely, Melanie. Your base for your planting of any plants is the start. If you're spending money on plants and you have to fix something after the time, you're going to need to waste your money and replant your plants. So starting with a great base is the best way to start.
So we talk all the time about compost, and I know you've probably heard, and I think I've said this 100 times at least in some kind of form of media or the other, is that everybody says, oh, no, compost is just a marketing ploy. I mean, that is actually one of the things which I think was the biggest mistake I ever made in my life, was not actually having good compost. So why is your compost and everything else that you make so special compared to the other brands that are out there?
Thanks. Yeah, we use our base for our compost is sawdust and pine bark. So we use a fairly acidic base to start. And due to it being sawdust and bark, it's weed free, it's organic, it's recycled material because we use it from the sawmills. And that's the base that we start with. All the different variants you get in compost, you get acid compost, you get bonsai mixes, you get all different types of things. We blend different mixes for different types of plants. So ideally, you want to start with the type of plant you're planting and work from there. So it's definitely not a myth by using different types of mixes. If you look at our composts, every single bag that we supply of the different mixes is a different ingredient in it, specific to the types of plants that you use and grow.
But then I'm sure some people might throw it at you and say, you're making something which is like, you're saying it's all that different, and all you're doing is popping some perlite into it just so you can justify making your prices more expensive. Is there any truth in that? I mean, are these mixes all that different, or could you just use one mix as a kind of cure-all for all of your plants? Or should each plant have something specific?
Look, each plant needs something specific. Your base is compost. So you start with compost and work from there. Different plants, different things in the soil for them to absorb better nutrients. So, for instance, azaleas, camellias, hydrangeas, they like a more acidic soil. So we've got an acidic mix, which, when your pH is between 4.5 and 5, those type of plants absorb their nutrients better. If they're too alkaline, call it above 6, then they're absorbing the nutrients. But then on the other hand, if you look at a bonsai mix or a succulent mix, it's all about drainage. So we're adding different silica sands and things to that to get the better drainage. So everything we add to our mixes is for a specific purpose, be it silica sand, cocoa peat, anything like that.
So because you are South African, and we have like so many wonderful South African plants, and one of the things which is coming through, and I know I'm going to probably throw you a curveball here, do you have a fynbos mix for those people who want to be growing fynbos, not just in their gardens, but in their pots, but not down in the Cape area? Because of course they've got the right soil there. Do you have the stuff which will be emulating the conditions that those plants need up, say, for instance, in Johannesburg?
A curveball, but unfortunately at this stage we don't supply down in the Cape. I've grown proteas very successfully up here. I know it's not exactly Fallow Boss, but I'm from my horticultural background. The same type of ingredients would work well with Fallow Boss. For us up here, it's all to do with river sand and acidic mix, and proteas grow like a bomb in it. So, but I wouldn't say yes, that's the mix to use for Fallow Boss, because we do not really supply any Fallow Boss growers up here. It's more a Cape thing.
Yeah, but it's becoming one of those things that people in Johannesburg want to have fynbos. So then we need to be able to give them something that they can use to actually grow the plants in, because our soil up here, and like the soil down, for instance, in the Midlands or down in KZN, is very different to where that's being grown initially. So, I mean, I know that you guys can do it, and I know that you are going to be going countrywide as soon as we work out what petrol's doing in this country, of course, and diesel. But do you need to have a different substrate specifically in the soil in your garden? Or would you kind of say rather do everything in pots first so that you can actually get those things growing nicely and then maybe think about planting them out again? Being a horticulturalist, you know this stuff.
Look, to plant in a pot or a bed or anything like that, you've got the control of your soil because you're adding everything to that. In the soil itself, then you've got to adapt that soil or replace it so that you can grow whatever type of plant you're wanting to grow. Successfully grew proteas massively in Rand Park Ridge here up in Joburg in just the soil that there was, adding a bit of river sand and acid mix. So, but every area, unfortunately, has got very different soils. So container gardening is the easiest way and the quickest way to be able to plant what you need and put exactly what mix you need in at that time.
Now, see, one of the mixes that you've got out is a very specific one for a specific type of plant, which apparently people are allowed to grow in their gardens now or in their pot plants. So where did that come from? How did you work out exactly what kind of mix you need to have for cannabis sativa, for instance?
We were approached by cannabis growers, specific growers that grow commercially, to make a mix because we have the facilities to make the mix and the facilities to bag the mix for them. So we started packaging and mixing for these guys and then decided, well, it's legal now to grow at home, so why don't we package for our customers, our local residential customers who also seem to enjoy a type of mix. And with the cannabis growers, they're after a very specific mix. It has to be organic. Their requirements are quite strict as far as what they put in, from perlite, vermiculite, cocoa peat, compost, and then obviously organic fertilizer. We're very at the forefront of organic fertilizers. We do not really enjoy a chemical fertilizer because of the burning and the damage it does to soil. So that's the reason why we went into it. I personally grow my spinach and other vegetables in this, we call it hemp soil, because of the amazing results I get from it. And yeah, it works well with our other cannabis plants, but I'm unfortunately not one of those growers.
Well, why would you need normal soil? I mean, why can't you just use normal soil? I mean, it apparently grows like a weed anyway. Anyway, enough about that one. One of the other questions I get quite a lot from people is, what's the buzz about mushroom compost? Why does everybody have this thing about mushroom compost? I mean, we know about vermicast, earthworms, they're very good. You can take their stuff, put that into your compost as well. But why this other thing? Do you do mushroom compost? Is it included in your compost as well?
Fortunately, don't do mushroom compost.
Okay.
Mushroom compost is a very specific thing. I don't know if you'll put this in the interview, but I'll just throw that in there. Mushroom compost is made of straw and chicken manure that they use for their mushroom. And once that process is done, they use that is your mushroom compost that the guys use commercially. It's very popular amongst the older generation. It's not really a new generation thing. So yeah, I do mushroom compost.
Okay. So it's something that I don't just say to people, oh, it's just old fashioned, rather go for the new way of doing things and have a look at what they're putting out by Bark as well. So if people want to find out more about the different mixes that you make, where would they find you?
Look, we're on YouTube. The owner, Jan Libbinger, has done a lot of videos on all our different products. We're on Facebook, and then obviously we're in all the good nurseries. We're in a few hardware stores, co-ops around the country. So we supply in 8 provinces currently, in Namibia and Botswana. So you can find us anywhere, but the easiest, obviously, on social media is Facebook and YouTube, where you can learn a lot about our products.
Fantastic. Well, I personally wouldn't suggest using anything else. And that's the way I'm going with it for my pots and everything else. I'm also not a pot plant grower, though, yet. So, but if you're thinking about doing something like that and you want to get the best start for any plants that you're growing, of course, Bark Unlimited is the way to go. Gareth, thank you so much for joining us. And hopefully
Thank you,
it's
Melanie.
enlightened people a little bit as to why you would use different kinds of soil, not just in your garden, but also in your pot plants. Well, we'll get some more interesting things coming up in the gardening world for you next week. In fact, I think I'm going to go and check out some fynbos and see how that grows. We'll catch you next time.